love how I feel like I'm in the middle of a rock concert.
Season 6.
No, I just thought I was at a rock concert. I was going to put it under your voice going, yeah.
Season 6.
It's so good.
We're back.
Well, not that you knew that we took a break. I guess there's been shows every week. Isn't that cool? Even when we take breaks, we record.
Nobody knows we take breaks.
Until we tell you, of course. But here we are.
We watched a lot of shit on our break.
We did watch a lot of shit. And it was kind of nice to watch like other stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I watched other kinds of movies and like it was one of those push play summers, you know, where I could just push play on whatever I was in the mood for. Because of course we're all like always really cognizant of what we're watching and should it be in the show and should we do a show on it? So yeah, it was nice. I watched a lot of fun stuff. Did you watch a lot of different stuff too?
I did. And I'm almost done with all 4 seasons of Succession. I have a few episodes left.
Nice.
I had mixed feelings about that series.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I didn't make it past, I think. I don't know where I ended up.
Not to digress too much, but I think it's in some ways it's really well written, and in other ways I'm like, you guys just keep playing the same problem over and over.
Yeah.
And over.
Family dysfunction and narcissism.
Well, I think you nailed it when you and I were talking off air, where it's like it's literally a series about a bunch of unlikable people.
Very much
Give
so.
or take a couple of endearing moments with some of them.
Maybe.
that are mostly because it's like cynical, not because they're actually empathic or anything. Like
right.
But
right. Yeah.
Oh, I really hope they're done after this season.
Yeah,
I can't do
cool.
another season of this.
No, you could be done.
I mean, I could be, but I would be like really like more.
Yeah, you would kind of be intrigued as to like, are they going to do something?
You were like,
different?
oh my God, have you seen Succession? I'm like, I have. These are like half the people I treat.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is for us too. Is it's just over and over again with the toxic personalities.
Well, and the sensationalism of it a bit too is problematic for me. But anyway, not to digress.
But we did.
But we do.
We do. We're going to talk about popular myths with regards to serial killers. And there are a ton. So we only picked 10. So it's a listicle. We're going to talk about 10 different myths here on the show today. You know, one of the first ones, let's see. The first one I thought we could talk about is the one where serial killers cannot stop killing. I think that's a popular thing where it's like, these people must have killed tens of hundreds of people or something. And most of the serial killers that we've broken down on the show have not.
No, and they take what are called cooling off periods.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I did the series on Dennis Rader.
Yeah.
BTK. I mean, he would go, you know, some of it is about opportunity and making sure if they're an organized serial killer, and maybe we need to just differentiate that real quick where, you know, organized versus disorganized. Organized serial killers tend to be a little bit more intelligent, well-educated.
Where they're like drawers in the kitchen are organized.
Yeah.
And all the bowls and the spoons.
That's right. Shut up. The disorganized serial killer would be someone who maybe we know that there's developmental delays. Yeah. There's more of that, what we call the neophyte, like a lot of childhood trauma, maybe some developmental stuff there. They might be more impulsive.
Or actual mental illness.
Or actual mental illness, not
Yeah.
just like someone being a psychopath.
Right.
But some of these folks can be, depending on what their needs are, can go a significant amount of time.
Yep.
Or just stop.
Well, and a lot of times there's an increase in family activities, or they meet a partner. A lot of times they'll meet someone and then they'll take a break because they're getting whatever their needs are met within that relationship, or there's some other diversion, you know, they lose their housing or something and they got to figure out where to live, like all the crises that regular folk have, or things coming into their life that are cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we know that if we're looking at someone who's more psychopathological, they cannot deal with boredom, right? So
right. There you go.
if they have other stimulus, and let's just to be clear, just for people listening, the way that we are identifying, the term serial killing means a series of 3 or more killings.
Yeah, that's the FBI way.
Yeah, the FBI ways. But, sometimes it isn't many, not that isn't a lot, but sometimes it is just 3. It isn't 20 like you were saying.
Yeah, I think your point too about, sometimes there's just things preventing them from finding the particular victim that they're after.
When we talked about Dennis Rader, he went through a period where he was very paranoid. His wife had gotten sick. She was in the hospital and he was attending to the house and all that. And he worried that if something happened to him during this time and he didn't make it back to the house or whatever, he'd be discovered. Mm-hmm. So he stopped for a period because he was so paranoid about being caught. So that was the motivation.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's going to play into one of our other myths later on about they don't all want to get caught. And so that's a piece of it, right? Is sometimes people get hot on the trail and then they got to lay low for a while because they do want to keep feeding that addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was something like, didn't Dennis Rader killed like 10 people or something? He stopped killing and it was like a decade or something before he was ever even arrested.
I'd have to go back and look, but he went sometimes like 3-4 years. And then there'd be times where he'd get really close to, because he would do the whole stalking. Like there's phases, right? Which we're not really talking about today, but that's a whole other show of talking about the different phases. And so when they're sort of trolling their victims, which is a phase, for him, if there was anything, he was so OCD, if there was anything problematic, he would stop altogether because there were a couple of times where he got very close to being caught.
Yeah.
Or things unexpectedly happened because he was impulsive. So the longer he did it, so what he did instead is he would recreate in his, like he had a room in his house that was locked and he would recreate a lot of the killings. He would take things from the site. So if he would go through a period where he couldn't kill, he would recreate the scenes. He would dress as his victims. He would take photos. He would become sexually aroused. He would asphyxiate himself. And that was his way of rehearsing when he couldn't actually carry out.
That makes perfect sense.
We don't know what they're actually doing in between.
No. Like I said, sometimes it's because there's actually family activity type stuff. Like, I did a series on Kuklinski and he had a family and a couple of kids and stuff. So there were times when, he didn't take a job because that was his job, was to murder. And he wouldn't take a job because he had family obligations and stuff to do, or they would have just had a new baby or something like that. I looked it up. Dennis Rader murdered 10 victims from 74 to 91, and he wasn't captured until 2005.
Yeah.
And in the interviews, like you said, that he was using autoerotic activities to substitute for his killings to get that addiction, Matt.
If y'all haven't seen the opening to season 2 of Mindhunter.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
That's all based, that whole first scene is really what Shannon and I are talking about of what he would do in between victims.
Yeah, I just read too, this guy, Jeffrey Gorton, he killed his first victim in 1986, and then his next victim not till 1991.
Right.
And then never killed anybody else. He also did cross-dressing and masturbatory activities and had consensual sex with his wife in the interim.
Isn't that interesting?
Was his
Rader did too. He tried one time to do something a little bit off the,
kinky.
And she didn't like it, and he knew from there. But part of it was based on fear. He's like, if I continue to do this with her, she might suspect. He was so paranoid about getting caught.
I mean, yeah, he wanted to keep going because he was of the more organized. Yeah. So he had the cognitive ability to.
Yeah. And he knew he was insatiable, so he had to find ways.
Yeah. Cut it out. Cut it out. Number 2, all serial killers are insane or evil geniuses.
Only you.
Only me. I am the only one that is both insane and an evil genius. Yeah. As a group of, serial killers suffer from a lot of different things. They're not, I don't know. The insane is obviously a colloquial word. And so people think, oh, they're all insane. And we use that just like a dumpster fire word, like people use the word crazy. People say insane.
In an illegal setting, it means something entirely different.
Yeah, there you go.
So, if you think about people found not guilty by reason of insanity, you can have a mental illness and not be deemed insane. Insane simply means that they knew exactly what they were doing, or they knew the harm of what they were doing in the exact moment that it happened, not 3 seconds before, not 3 seconds after. But yeah, you're right. I mean, insanity really is just this trash can term for something
people
we don't
say,
understand.
Oh, that's so insane or whatever. But I guess what I was reading is that most people are not adjudicated as insane under the law.
No,
that's
less than
really,
1%.
Really rare, yeah. I mean, serial killers have a lot of different issues.
When they range in intelligence from like a borderline functioning all the way to, if we're looking at Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, right? To that level of intelligence, and everything in between. So there isn't this, they all sit on this, intelligence quota.
Well, in our media, we enjoy the story or the mythology of the evil genius who outsmarts the law.
Yeah. Or as victims, because it makes them more terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It plays into our fear in a better way. I mean, that series Mindhunter alluded to it and talked a little bit about it, but you don't have a lot of media where the serial killer isn't smart.
No.
It's just not what we want to see.
I mean, a perfect example of that would be the Night Stalker. He was not, he had a lot, I don't think he was borderline functioning, but he certainly had a lot of developmental stuff. He had brain injury. He had epilepsy. He was...
And true mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The number three. Serial killers want to get caught.
Well, I'll tell you what. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the Texarkana Moonlight murders.
That's true.
And that motherfucker did everything he could to not get caught.
Right. So that's not accurate. It's accurate with some, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they...
Say it, Shannon. Just say it.
It's not because they're looking to get captured. It might be because they actually literally don't think they'll be captured, which is a distinction, right?
Yes, it is.
It's like if happen to be more narcissistic, I don't think I'm going to get caught.
Right.
As opposed to I'm trying to get caught, where we see the writing the letters to the journalists, right? And saying, come and get me, all that taunting. It's not, I don't know that it's actually about being caught. I think it's more about the taunting and see how much I can do and get away with it without getting caught.
Yeah, the limitlessness.
But I do understand that there's a piece of the media that has the serial killer, and I imagine this is true. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but where when they realize they're caught, they shift what they need in the moment to, oh, this is my opportunity to be a star or whatever. Sometimes it sort of shifts. It's like they might spend all this time trying not to get caught. It's like Ted Bundy, all this jumping out of windows and trying not to get caught and to try to keep killing. But then when he is caught and he is on trial, he's like, oh, let me defend myself so I can be the star and walk around the courtroom or whatever. It's like he just shifted the supply to the courtroom.
That's right.
I don't know. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Serial killers kill dozens of people, Kathy.
No.
Next.
That is not correct.
No. I guess, you said BTK, 10 people. Ted Bundy wasn't that many.
Many of that. Well, Ted Bundy, the number is up for,
debate
because at one point he was all like really grandiose about, 17 to 20 or whatever. And then they think it's less than 10. His number's kind of all over the place. But a lot of folks, there are serial killers where it's well over 10, but on average it's like 5.
Yeah.
Or 6. That's usually what I see.
Well, and we're talking about how they take breaks and stuff. So
yeah,
there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't. And then the disorganized folks, Ramirez, etc., they flame out because they just don't pay attention to anything, and they go on some kind of a spree, for lack of a better word.
Well, but Bundy was weird though, because it was like one night he decided to go out and play Pokemon Go with like as many women as he could kill. Because remember the Chi Omega murders? He's like, I just killed 5. I'm on a rampage, and then he goes down the road and kills like 2 other people. Yeah. So he would be, like
he just flamed out. Like he did. It was so crazy. Yeah. It was so all over the place that there's no way he was gonna not get caught, kind of thing.
And some of those women didn't die, which is why they weren't included in his.
That's right.
Head count. But he was more than most of what, like when we look at many of these, which people don't even know many of their names, the ones who are not as notorious, it's like 3 to 5.
Yeah, if there's an average, right?
Yeah. And I think Dahmer would have kept going if he didn't get caught.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. In a very methodical but consistent way. He was very... I don't know, was like very clear what he needed and wanted from his life, and he would have just kept going.
Yeah.
I imagine. But I can understand it, because then there's guys like Kuklinski, who I mentioned before, who was a contract killer, but was a sadist and enjoyed his kills far too much. And, it was probably thousands.
Right.
Because he had access. He was literally given access and permission by his bosses, kind of thing.
Oh, no, he was,
He lived in a world where that was what was going on, and he was protected.
We call this serial killer privilege.
There you go.
We're going to find the victims for you. You don't even have to do anything. We just need you to kill them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're going to let you.
Right.
Here's your pass. Here's your magic kingdom.
Fuck the patriarchy.
Here's your magic key. Disneyland reference for those of you who are into that. All right. Number 5. Serial killers are all loners and kill by themselves.
Incorrect.
No?
Sounded like a baby.
I went, I should have done it shorter like that.
Serial killers are like vampires. They have a watcher, and sometimes their watcher unknowingly is their family. That's their cover. That's what makes them appear normal. Dennis Rader, Kuklinski, Ted Bundy to a certain extent. Very charming and well respected in the community. The clown, what's his name?
Yeah.
What's our dude that killed little boys?
Oh, God.
Gacy.
Yeah, they hide in plain sight, right?
They hide in plain sight.
A clown for kids' parties.
Okay.
I mean...
Although the most terrifying way to hide in plain sight is a fucking clown.
I know, because of that uncanny valley, It's just like they're kind of human and they don't, but no. And we can't read their faces, which is very disturbing.
But wouldn't you say
clowns.
most of them have a cover?
Yeah, I mean, they often have families, homes, jobs. I mean, it falls apart at some point.
Yeah.
And, gainfully employed. They kind of appear, I should say, average members of the community a lot of times. Sometimes they just ingratiate themselves into all kinds of places the rest of us wouldn't go, joining PTA and, I don't know, coaching soccer and doing all these like really normative things.
Running youth groups at church. Running for office. I mean, Bundy was in politics, although we know there's probably plenty of serial killers in politics.
Probably, yeah.
But... that's it. Although this is a subsection of what we're talking about, kind of an it overarches a bunch of the different areas we're talking about. Not all of them come from deep trauma. Many of them do. But many of them, they're really just, if we get into the origins of psychopathy, not all of it is based on environment. Some of it's genetic, and you give the right environment, an opportunity for something to open up. Not all of them were beaten as children.
That's right. They're not all. We tend to talk about a lot of the folks that do have those kinds of childhoods because, we're psych. So we talk about that and how it's gone. Oh, BTK was a Boy Scout leader.
Yes, he was. And he also was part of their church. He was very involved.
And he served in the Air Force.
And he was not a loner.
President of his church. I'm reading it right here.
Here's the other thing, too. For killers like the Phantom Killer or the Zodiac Killer, because we don't have, or even the one that was cut from here to here. I can't think of her name. These folks were never caught. So my guess would be that many of them lived among their community and no one knew that they were the, we think about Zodiac, we think about Phantom Killer. These are folks that we think, if you look at it, it's like, oh, they must have lived in isolation up in a hill somewhere and they come down at night. It's like, no, dude, they probably lived right next door to you and fed your dog when you were on vacation.
Fuck.
We don't know. So sometimes we make this assumption, if we don't have the identity of a killer, that they lived alone somewhere. But more often than not, they were probably fully immersed in the community because they knew exactly where things were and the locations of things and the timing of things. You have to be part of your community to do that. Loners, my ass.
Spooky. All right, number 6. All serial killers are narcissistic sociopaths, Kathy. Aren't they?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
moving on.
If they are, they tend to be more grandiose in their presentation.
Sure. It's like what we were talking about with, taunting the police, making statements, wanting to tell the story.
Would you like to give us an example maybe of one who was not, or wasn't at least to this level that there would be this kind of diagnosis?
Well, Dahmer, I mean, he wasn't a narcissist.
He was not.
And Richard Ramirez was far too delusional.
Yeah, he was a sexual sadist, but that's not the same thing. He was very mentally ill.
And going along with that, a lot of people think that all serial killers are sexual sadists or it's about sex. And it might be about relationship and how they relate to humans, but it's not all about sex. They're not all sexual sadists or any of that. I mean, Bundy wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He was just clobber him over the head and gut him out.
Yeah, and some of them are more into asphyxiation and then the sex. But we've mentioned several today that were definitely sexual sadists or it had something to do with sex. Well, a lot of the ones people know the names of.
Right.
Are.
That's right. Well, those are the more terrifying ones, right?
Yeah.
When you get ripped out of your bed in the middle of the night.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a comfy conversation.
It's fantastic. Welcome. Number 7. Serial killers are not people of color or women.
Yeah, that's wrong. In fact, some of the most prolific, we just don't talk about them, are African-American males. I mean, if you go on, you can look at the top 20. And again, going back to what we were saying earlier, many of them are like 3 to 5. Henry Louis Wallace, I'm just going to name a couple. Chester Turner, Derek Todd Lee. Let's see, who else do we have in here? Lorenzo Gilliard. These range anywhere from like the 50s to the 70s to, Craig Price, Mark Godot. A lot of them include rape, sexual assault, and murder. They're all over the map, but there are plenty. We just don't talk about them as much because, of course, I think as a society, we have sensationalized the white male serial killer. They get a lot of attention. They get, with the exception to Richard Ramirez, he did get a lot of attention. But
wouldn't you say that's our own internalized patriarchy that we
100%,
and that we only pay attention to the white ones?
Yeah, exactly, and how fascinating they are. And I think we also make the mistake of assuming that the white ones are the intelligent, organized, and our folks of color are the disorganized, uneducated. And I think that is just a stereotype. So isn't it more interesting to look at the Hannibal Lecters?
Sure. I mean, the mythology comes from somewhere. I mean, all the myths that we're talking about today do have data to say that they are the majority. Each myth, it's like the myth came from somewhere. We're just talking about it's not all or nothing. So one of the studies I was reading said 74% of the murderers were from the United States. They did this study of like 550 cases. 85% were male in this study. So I'm not saying that it isn't the dominant. I'm not talking about color right now, but it wasn't the dominant that they were male, and 8% were female in this study. 82% were white. 15% were black, 2.5% were Hispanic. We're in this one particular case where there was 550 cases studied of serial murder. And so the mythology, all these myths come from a place of, it's the dominating and prevailing view, because there have been these studies that say it's a majority male.
Well, and if you think about it, it does add up for me, because if you're looking at Dahmer, Bundy, some of these folks that even early on when there were major warning signs, they were given the benefit of the doubt simply because they were white males. So all of these red flags were nothing but, oh, no, slap on the wrist, or, you're going to do something with your life if you don't do X, Y, and Z anymore. That they were giving multiple opportunities, which for somebody like Bundy, who is a narcissist or not was a narcissistic sociopath, that he was like, oh, look at what I can get away with, and I can use my looks and my charm and my whiteness and my maleness and all of this stuff. So in some ways, they were given a much larger platform and more leeway to do more, where some of these other folks, after one or two, they're caught, they're thrown in prison forever. These guys were given multiple free passes.
Oh my
get
God,
out of jail free.
The privilege that, I think that's a really strong point around it, is because the privilege that is afforded the white male in our society is so evident in a lot of the cases that we've looked at. They are the police letting them do this, that, or the other. Society, women, that were most of their prey was women, except we've obviously spoken about Dahmer, who preyed on males. But when you are preying on women, a lot of times, especially the victim type that he was looking for, was going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Was going to not believe the worst in him because of his white
Which was part of the game.
And because he was good looking.
Yep.
And so it really speaks to the fact that people of color, this is not out of data, but people of color are going to get caught way faster because the police are always looking at them to find something wrong, and they're interacting with the police all the time, getting pulled over because they're black, right?
Right. So like there's racial profiling, and then there's also what we call in psychology confirmation bias, right? So if you look at somebody like Ted Bundy and you find him good looking and you find him intelligent and you find him all of these things, what confirmation bias essentially is you go into then evaluating that person with certain attributes that you are in favor of, that then take over your ability to actually assess them accurately.
Got it.
Yeah. You fried it, old Sparky, Ted.
Oh, God.
Do you remember that shirt we saw at the convention where it was like Old Sparky? And I'm like, I can't wear this anywhere.
Oh,
but this shirt is so...
But you bought it anyway?
No, I didn't. But because I'm like, I could wear it at home, but do I really want to wear that to bed? It was Ted Bundy. It was a cartoon of him.
Ted Bundy.
in Old Sparky. And it was like,
my God. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It was such a good shirt.
There was a booth, and all of the shirts were some sort of serial killer thing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But he was sitting in Old Sparky. I'm like, I don't know if we can get away with...
I can't wear any of this anywhere. No. What am I going to rep Charles Manson?
Maybe, but with all the cancel culture,
I don't think so.
You'll be canceled at Ralph's.
And I don't really want to, but they were hilarious to look at. Like, I don't really want to have conversations about my Manson t-shirt in the grocery store.
Or Ted sitting on Old Sparky.
Like, that's what's going to happen. Oh, that's an interesting oh, wait. Oh, is that Ted Bundy on your t-shirt?
Is that Sharon Tate in a pool of blood on the,
Huh. Yeah, no.
Some people would get it. Most people would be very offended.
Yeah. Like I go places with people under 12, so that's not going to work.
No, not wearing that to work.
No, thank you. All right. Serial number 8. We're on number 8, ladies and gentlemen. Number 8. Serial murder is an epidemic.
It is not.
Oh.
The reality
of
serial homicide in the United States.
Yes, ma'am.
No more than 1% of all murders.
Yeah.
It's not very large, common, significant.
There were a ton of serial killers between 1970 and 2000, like in the last millennial, during that 30 years, especially as we know in the 70s and 80s. It just became part of the media. And so it just seemed, and there were more then than there are now, I think.
Well, I don't think you can get away with as much. I mean, this is why a lot of the movies now are, made back in times where we don't have cell phones and Ring cameras and all these things where it's like, you dumbass, we saw you walk up to the house and break in. When you look at all these unsolved murders, you and I have talked about some of these older unsolved cases in some of our previous episodes, some of which they wouldn't be able to get away with some of these anymore.
Oh my God. Have you been on the Nextdoor app in your neighborhoods? My God, the Karens are there.
Rampant.
And the Karens and Joe Bobs. I mean, I don't know what the male equivalent of a Karen is, but like,
Chad.
The Chad is there and they're all talking about it.
Sometimes it helps. When my dog got out
it's
once,
fantastic.
that's how we found her.
Yep. It's fair. And I see a lot of that on Nextdoor.
Yeah.
But the rest
some of this other
like,
stuff, it's a little.
Oh my God. They're constantly saying, was that a gunshot? Did anyone hear a gunshot? I'm like, oh my God.
No, you live in white suburbia.
You're just wrecked. No, it was a firework. Shut up.
Talk about people who have never lived anywhere where there's actually been gunshots.
I know.
That didn't even
seriously.
sound.
Seriously.
Like a gun.
Number 9. Serial killers' behavior can be predicted.
No, I mean, we've talked about this on various shows, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about an in-depth study of
risk assessment,
a risk assessment that's done by a professional, but we also talk a lot of in-depth around, the last 25 years of their life, the first 25 years of their life, and how it may have affected the actions that they took. And so that might give people some sort of mistaken thought that, oh, well, if all of that was happening in the first, 10 years of their life, couldn't someone have predicted that they would act that way? It's like, no, because that was just a piece of it. A lot of what any individual person goes through, hundreds of thousands of other people have gone through that too, and they didn't become a serial killer.
That's right. Yeah. There's so many different contextual pieces that it isn't a roadmap.
Right.
We know things that can heighten risk or heighten the probability of things, but we can't say this plus this equals that, which they've tried to do that in the past with the dark triad and all of those things, which, we know that there are problematic pieces to that concept.
It's problematic, Kathy.
It's problematic, like me. There are truths to it as well, which is why, again, you have to put in all the other contextual pieces for it to,
And that makes sense. All right. Number 10.
Pulling up her pants. Not that
Number
they
10.
were down.
No, well,
they were downish.
Pantsless recording. Downish. My pants
Serial
were
killer
downish.
light. No, pedophilia light.
Oh,
Isn't
that's
that what I said
we
on the
talking
Jared
about.
one?
Yeah. What episode was that? Good Lord. Oh, Jared.
Jared. He's pedophile light.
Yeah, no, it's not a thing. Go listen to that episode. Number 10. Our last and final myth of the day, Kathy. Serial killers are misfits and socially inept.
No.
I love
Come
how
on now.
everyone I read, you're like, nope.
No. No, many of them are, like we talked about, fit into society well. They're very unassuming. They get along well with, they, in some ways, to be that successful and not be the target of, like, when you watch a movie like The Burbs, okay, everyone's looking at that house going, those are fucking weirdos in there.
Yeah,
right?
and that we would definitely look at that house and say that.
Right. But it'd be the serial killer standing out in the lawn with us going, they're fucking weird.
We would be the serial killers in that,
Yes.
in that instance.
The serial killer, you pass that dude at Target in the toothpaste aisle. He's just getting toothpaste today.
Yeah, the weirdos are doing something else. The serial killers are passing in the light of day.
The weirdos might be your school shooters.
Yes.
Right? That's a whole other episode, but that's the point is, like, these mental illnesses and
bombers.
these personality disorders, they manifest differently in the types of crimes and the way that but serial killers, it's just, they're so fucking bored. Mm-hmm. And they're so callous. Think about if you woke up one day with the brain of a reptile. You didn't know how to tap into empathy. You had no fear, no brakes in the car. And you're like, I'm going to go fuck shit up and not even be sorry about it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, have inexplicable rage and feelings that you were so uncomfortable in that you had to...
Big emotions.
Yeah.
Some big emotion, whether it's sexual, anger, some big emotions that you don't know how to channel.
And you have no empathy and no inhibition.
And they have to be externally channeled.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
But they learn how to mimic us.
Yeah.
They learn how to mimic empathy. So this is what makes them so good, is they have that cognitive empathy. They can walk around and go, how should I be right now? Mm-hmm. And that's where they get ya.
They do get you, Kathy. I hope they don't get you.
I hope they don't get you.
Okay, fine.
You have a lot of neighbors.
It's true. It's 2023. Why do we still have neighbors? All right. This has been an episode.
Yes, it is. Season 6.
Season 6. Thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you like to do. And if you happen to like our show, it would be super exciting if you would leave us a glowing review somewhere. Spotify or iTunes, or reach out to us on social media and tell us what you think.
And
yes,
if you happen to be a serial killer and listen to this episode and we got anything wrong, please let us know.
Oh, golly. Or not. You could just write the glowing review and fit in like everybody else. Just fit in and not tip us.
I don't want to leave anyone out.
Not tip. Also, if you want to help us out and you want to consider donating to us and becoming a Patreon, you got lots of extra content in the Patreon. So we very much appreciate you. This has been an episode of Terror Talk. My name is Shannon.
And I'm Kathy. Sleep safe, everyone.